express my before we begin, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to our organizers, Eva Richter from the Peace Foundation and Said Saiful Haq from the Warp Development Foundation for their dedication in bringing us together today. Their commitment to advocating for migrant rights and combating trafficking has played a crucial role in making this conversation possible. I would also like to acknowledge our partner organizations, Apne Aap International, the Bangladesh Parliamentarians Council on Migration and Development, and Surreptimist International, and Jackie Shapiro. Each of these organizations has been at the forefront of policy advocacy, survivor support, and grassroots action to protect migrants from exploitation and trafficking. Their work ensures that migration can be safe, dignified, and free from coercion. As many of you know, I'm the founder of Apne Aap. Apne Aap organizes survivors and vulnerable women and children to combat trafficking by accessing education, livelihoods, and legal support. I also teach a course on the subject of human trafficking, people smuggling, and migration at New York University, and have worked with the UN in Asia, Africa, and the US on issues related to child protection and human trafficking. For centuries, migration has become a source and been a source of economic prosperity and cultural exchange. Yet today, migration is increasingly driven by desperation, conflicts, climate change, economic hardship, and natural disasters that are displacing millions worldwide. In this environment, traffickers prey on the vulnerable, promising jobs and opportunities, but delivering exploitation and abuse instead. Bangladesh is at the heart of this migration challenge. With a population of over 171 million people, it is the sixth largest migrant sending nation, with 7.5 million Bangladeshis, nearly 5% of the population living abroad, primarily in Asia and Middle East. While migration provides economic opportunity, it also comes with significant risks, especially for low skilled workers, many of whom rely on middlemen and recruiting agencies. The reality is that Bangladeshi migrant workers fall into debt based coercion, contract switching, and outright trafficking. Women, in particular, are vulnerable to being trafficked into domestic servitude and the sex trade. Today, our panel will examine three crucial aspects of migration and trafficking: the migration landscape in Bangladesh, both internal and external, and how it impacts families and communities. The specific risks faced by Bangladeshi immigrants, including labor and sex trafficking, and the policies needed to protect them. And thirdly, prevention, protection, and prosecution. How can we strengthen laws, expand economic opportunities, and implement survivor centered solutions to break the cycle of exploitation? Human trafficking is the second largest illicit organized crime in the world. UNODC used to say it generates 236 billion in annual profits, but today we are hearing the figure of half a trillion. It thrives where people lack knowledge of their rights, governments fail to regulate recruitment and labor practices, traffickers operate with impunity. A national study in Bangladesh has found that economic hardship is the biggest risk factor for trafficking, with 30% of the population surviving on just $3, less than $4 a day. For the 1.2 million Bangladeshi workers who have migrated in 2023, just last year, most of whom are low skilled, lack of access to safe migration pathways makes them vulnerable to coercion and deception. Despite government and NGO efforts, systemic challenges remain. Law enforcement agencies lack resources to investigate trafficking cases effectively. Victim identification systems are inadequate, leaving many survivors without protection. Technology has made it easier for traffickers to manipulate and exploit vulnerable individuals. The solution to these challenges is not just stronger laws, but stronger enforcement, better oversight, and survivor centered support. We need to strengthen legal protections and ensure ethical recruitment practices, increase economic opportunities in home countries so that migration is a choice, not a necessity, expand trauma informed support for survivors to prevent re trafficking, promote gender equality to reduce vulnerabilities that disproportionately impact women and girls, improve collaboration between governments, NGOs, and private sector actors to ensure safe migration. We are privileged to have a distinguished panel today featuring experts and advocates who bring policy expertise, grassroots experience, and lived realities to this discussion. We have Hasina Akhtar Haq, a renowned development expert, who will provide insights on the structural and economic factors driving migration. We also have with us Mehjabeen Khalid, Secretary General of the Parliamentarians Caucus on Migration and Development in Bangladesh, and she will share key policy perspectives on migration governance. We have Jasia Khatun, Director of the Warp Development Foundation, an organization dedicated to ensuring the rights and welfare of Bangladeshi migrant workers, and Kuki Akhtar, a trafficking survivor who will share her lived experience and what do survivors really want. Their story is a powerful reminder of why we must push for a systemic change, why immigrants should not be forced to fall into the hands of criminals just because they face bias, because they fear coming forward for services, because they are targeted as criminals. This conversation is urgent and necessary. Migration should be a pathway to dignity, not a journey into exploitation. As we listen to today's discussion, I encourage all of you, whether policymakers, advocates, or community members, to think about how we can take these insights and translate them into action. Let's commit to solutions that ensure that migration remains a safe, transparent, and rights based process. Each speaker will have 8 minutes to present. I will then engage them with focused questions for about 15 minutes before opening our panel to Q&A. But before we begin our panel, I would like to ask Eva and Saiful if they would like to make a few introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Ruchira. I think I would simply be echoing you if I talked about all of these things. And what is important to us is that we, first of all, welcome everyone to this session on improving outcomes for trafficked migrant women and girls, presented by the Poverty and Elimination and Community Education, the acronym PEACE Foundation. Joining us as sponsors are War Redevelopment Foundation, APNIA, the Bangladesh Parliamentary Caucus on Migration and Development, Soroptimist International, and the International Federation of Business and Professional Women. I want to thank all my colleagues who have so valiantly stepped up to put this session together, and I want especially to acknowledge the technical expertise of Hudson on loan from APNIA and of Nermin Ahmad of IFBPW, International Federation of Business and Professional Women, both of whom are monitoring this session, making sure that bios are accessible in the chat and functioning, and that share of materials goes smoothly. We are very, very happy to have you all with us in this session. Thank you very much all.
Saiful, would you like to make a few remarks or should I begin the panel discussion?
Saiful is there. Can you unmute, Saiful?
I think your mic needs to be unmuted. Hudson, can you unmute Saiful's mic, please?
Is it okay now?
Yes, please.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. I think this is a very great moment for me because this is an opportunity for all of us to discuss about the, improving the situations of, that particular areas we are going to discuss about the trafficking of uh, women and girls in particularly trafficked migrant women and girls. So I welcome all of the participants here in this webinar, and I hope that we can discuss the issues which actually we need to bring to our different stakeholders and also we can have some outcomes of this discussion, that we can bring some of the things to be changed in policy and other areas. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you, Eva and Saiful. And now, without much ado, I would like to invite the first panelist, Hasina Akhtar Haq, to provide an overview on the intersection of trafficking and migration. Over to you, Hasina. You already have Hasina's bio in the chat for those who want to learn more about her. And while we wait for her, I will read you her bio. Hasina is a renowned development expert. She has worked in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, and also other parts of Southeast Asia. She has worked specifically on migration-related trafficking, and today she will offer us her expertise of 30 years working on these issues. Hasina. I think Hasina's having a connection issue. So in the meantime, I will move on to the next panelist till she joins. Mehjabeen Khalid, Secretary General of the Parliamentarians Caucus on Migration and Development in Bangladesh. Mehjabeen will share key policy perspectives on migration governance and the role of legislative frameworks in protecting migrants. Over to you, Mehjabeen.
Thank you, Ruchira. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, Hudson can show the slides. I'll start now. Good morning, everybody, esteemed participants. Today, I speak before you with a heavy heart. A child is crying out for rescue. A woman is trapped behind locked doors, and family is desperately searching for their missing daughter. Human trafficking is not just a crime. It is the darkest betrayal of human dignity, a theft of dreams, a violation unfolding in real time. As a resource person from Bangladesh and as Secretary General of Bangladesh Parliamentarian Caucus on Migration and Development, I'm here to address these concerns. Its global reach, its grip on Bangladesh, the laws we wield, the obstacles we face, and the urgent action we must take together. Next slide, please. Picture this, a teenage girl from rural village, eyes bright with hope, boards a bus with a man promising a job in the city. She imagines sending money home, lifting her family from poverty. But days later, she is locked in a brothel, her screams unheard, her dreams sold for profit. This is not isolated tale. It's the reality for millions. The United Nations estimates over 25 million people are trapped in human trafficking worldwide. 71% of them women and girls, forced into sexual exploitation and grueling labor. The UN Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Persons and CEDAW demand action, prevention, prosecution, and protection. Yet, across borders, enforcement stumbles, leaving women in Asia, Africa, and beyond prey to traffickers who thrive on chaos of poverty, war, and displacement. In Bangladesh, this crisis cuts deep. We are the sixth largest migrant sending country globally, with thousands crossing borders yearly for work. But too often, hope turns to horror. Take Salma, a 19-year girl from Jessore, promised a maid's job in Dubai. She paid a recruiter her family's savings, only to be trafficked to a brothel in Oman. Her passport seized, her body bruised. Or consider Aisha, a mother lured by the fake marriage proposal, then smuggled to India for forced labor. Over 30 years, studies estimate 1 million Bangladeshi women and girls are trafficked, and 400 each month, according to the report of UNICEF. 61% surge in cases marks this as a national emergency. Internally, girls are snatched or lured from villages with promises of factory jobs. Cross-border, they are funneled to India, Pakistan, Malaysia, and Middle East, the routes paved with deceit. Traffickers prey on women like vultures, selling dreams that ends in slavery. Next slide, please. Trafficking hides in shadows, run by sophisticated criminals, spanning continents. Victims rarely seek justice. Stigma brands them as tainted. Threats silence them, and legal aid feels out of reach. Take Reena, a survivor I met, trafficked to Kolkata. She escaped, but her village shunned her, and the police dismissed her case for lack of proof. This suppression masks the crisis scale. From my work, I see towering challenges. Corruption and weak enforcement are the key issues. The lack of training and corruption among border guards allows the traffickers slip through unchecked. In most cases, justice is denied to the victims. Of hundreds arrested, few are convicted, and many pay fines and walk free, mocking our laws. Safety nets are huge problems. With overcrowded shelters, adult women, unlike children, get little rehab support. Migration traps are visibly large. Migrant workers like Salma borrow thousands for recruitment fees, landing in debt bondage, illegal slavery. Next slide, please. Among all challenges, Bangladesh is fighting back with robust tools. The Prevention and Suppression of Human Trafficking Act 2012 imposes life in imprisonment or death for traffickers and promises victims care such as shelters, legal aid, and compensation. Anti-human trafficking tribunals are established to fast-track cases. Victim identification guidelines are helping police spot trafficking within smuggling cases. Last year, 407 traffickers were convicted, which is a leap forward. A national referral mechanism is taking shape to link survivors to services, while the Vigilance Task Force continues operation on fraudulent recruiters. Bangladesh UN Network on Migration and its counter-trafficking group, which I am a part of, push for solution. In 2019, the Bangladesh UN Network on Migration was established, and shortly afterwards, a counter-trafficking in persons, a working group was set up to provide advice and support on counter-trafficking measures. This working group is composed of civil societies, non-government organizations, UN agencies, and government working in a whole of society approach to combat human trafficking in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. While Bangladesh has made significant strides in addressing human trafficking, there is still a long road ahead. To effectively combat trafficking, Bangladesh must adopt a more holistic and a survivor-centered approaches like strengthening law enforcement, enhancing shelter facilities, provide trauma-informed care, and removal legal barriers that prevent survivors from accessing government support, strictly monitor recruitment agencies, and eliminate working exploitation. For public awareness, Bangladesh can conduct nationwide campaigns to educate vulnerable population on safe migration and trafficking risks. And lastly, SAARC and ASEAN and other regional cooperation can play a crucial role in combating trafficking. As we move forward today, we must continue and not stay quiet. We cannot look away. Salma, Aisha, Reena, they're not numbers. They're daughters, sisters, dreamers. We owe them our voices. At the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, I call you, governments, civil society partners, to amplify this fight. We must educate, advocate, and demand justice. So today, let's make a promise, not to ourselves, but to the millions who are waiting to be saved. Let's vow we will be their hope, their shield, and their freedom. Bangladesh stands ready, but we need you. Together, let's end this betrayal and restore dignity, one life at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehjabeen Khalid, for a very, very comprehensive presentation. And now I would like to invite Hasina Akhtar Haq to provide an overview on the intersection of trafficking and migration. Hasina, thank you for
Can you hear
joining
me?
us all the way from Bangladesh.
Yeah. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And sorry for, I mean, there is a, I think because of the time change thing, I think I joined a little late. So extremely sorry for that. So that's one thing. And one disclaimer, during the presentation, perhaps I'll switch off my video because I have severe runny nose. So after that, I will again, like, during the question answer session. So you have to bear with me. Yeah, I'll start. Hudson, I think you're helping me with the slides, right?
Yes, he is.
Please start.
Hudson, you can begin screen sharing the slides.
Yeah, please. Are you there, Hudson?
I think he's trying to switch the order of slides because
Yeah.
he put Mehjabeen's next and yours first. So he's just trying to do that.
Okay.
And in the meantime, maybe, yeah, he's got it. Okay, Hasina.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Hudson, and thank you, everyone, for joining this session and bearing with my illness, which is like, I think everybody these days is suffering from the viral flu. So once again, good morning and good afternoon as applicable to each of you. And I feel really honored this evening and this morning to be here to discuss a little bit about the human trafficking in Bangladesh. I mean, the current trend and the situation. Though Mehzabeen, my earlier speaker, has already spoken about the human trafficking context, background context, and government initiatives, I believe, which there might be a little bit of overlapping. I'm not sure, but if so, please bear with me. Hassan, next slide. Yes, in the context, I think, as we all know, I mean, that somehow Bangladesh, the situation of trafficking in Bangladesh is very concerning at this moment. I mean, for quite a number of years, for the vulnerable groups in particular, for the families with low income, women, children, people who are coming to town for seeking jobs, especially number of people with climate change effect in their lives, and in particular the Rohingya refugees. As we all know, you all know that we do have more than 1 million Rohingya refugees right now in Bangladesh, in Cox's Bazar. If we look at the statistics a little bit, in 2024, the government identified trafficking victims. That is, I mean, government number is 1,210 in particular, which is more than 1,000. And out of these 1,210 identified trafficking victims by the government, 210 women were sex trafficking victims, and 795, almost 800, was forced labor victims. And a large number of these 795 is also women, I'm sorry. However, the civil society organizations, as usual, and the international organizations are reporting a much higher number, which is more than 10,000, exceeding actually 10,000 trafficking numbers. So there is the huge gap. It says that there is something that we need to work on together with the government, especially about the number, because I mean, this is impossible, like, 1,210 and 10,000, you can, I mean, easily see. So that's one thing. Law enforcement has been active. However, investigate, there was like in 2024, there was like 975 cases were investigated by the law enforcement, and there was prosecution also, like more than 1,000. And slightly more than 400 convictions. But the challenges still persist, I would say. I mean, we all know, particularly with the trafficking under the guise of disguise of labor migration. Uh, as I have mentioned earlier, income poor families, so naturally they seek livelihood options, and and the people who does this business, I mean, they sell dreams to them, which Mezabin has touched a little bit, in her presentation. So there is even if they go out, I mean, huge exploitation for these workers, that includes everything, long hours of work, not enough and adequate food, and sex work. So that is there. Domestic workers in particular even more vulnerable in this situation. And there are also people, as I have said, that income poor families, they somehow trapped into the dream of having a better life, so they even do not hesitate to sell whatever they have, their assets like land, properties, and then eventually they are trapped into a debt cycle over the years after years. So that is somehow the situation till now. I mean, in Bangladesh, we have been working in the anti-human trafficking for quite long, but that's that sets the context. Can we go to the second second slide? The 2024 trafficking report, if we look at what it says about Bangladesh, that it's in Bangladesh is in tier 2. That I mean, we all know somehow that it indicates that the efforts by the government, the policies by the policymakers are improved or increased and enhanced, I would say. But still, there are a lot need to be done in terms of the execution of the policy. The country really falls short of really meeting, in fact, a minimum standard of anti-trafficking standards, in global standards, if we look at. And the key findings, if we look, from these Trafficking in Persons 2024 report for Bangladesh, that there are, I mean, of course, these numbers, it says, I mean, a very little, I would say. If we go by the numbers, of course, number counts, but I would once again say that it goes very little. I mean, serious concerns remains, how, I mean, how the policies are being executed. Official, complicity in trafficking continues to be a major problem, and protection service for the victims are still very inadequate. In the rural areas, in the subnational level areas, I think there is really minimum. Whatever one-stop service and other services that we have, mostly in the capital city based or in the divisional city based. So that is one of the major challenge in this trafficking situation. Authorities often I mean, they say trafficking with migrant smuggling, but how it is happening? I mean, there are a lot of I would say awareness raising still needed even within the government. I mean, how it is happening if it is under cover of the labor migration. So that is something. So that, I mean, when we say that trafficking is happening with in the name of labor migration, I'm sorry, so that weakens the overall response or the whole framework of the response for anti-trafficking in Bangladesh. Furthermore, cases of the trafficking, especially for the Rohingyas, once again, I know that we are not discussing Rohingya refugees here in particular, but still that remains largely under addressed because or unaddressed in many cases, I would say. As we all know, they're living in the camps, and they are not even full refugee status. So that makes the whole thing very very grim there in the Rohingya refugees. And I mean, of course, international NGOs, local civil society groups, they are doing the advocacy with the government that how can we at least, if not all, but at least the anti-trafficking interventions can be strengthened within the protection works that in the Rohingya camps that international NGOs are providing. So that is one of the advocacy that we have been still on, but that actually came out with the report also that a lot need to be done in the Rohingya camps, along with the rural areas of Bangladesh. And I think, yeah, can I go to the slide 3? Yeah, I think once again, I think I will be focusing on the report in particularly because the report, it's a very, I would say, very well focused and well developed report. And it also, it's not only that identifies the challenges or the weakness, but also there are recommendations, particularly that how can a country like Bangladesh really enhance the anti-trafficking efforts, especially like we all know that we are one of the largest, I think, migrant worker sending countries in the world. So to tackle these challenges effectively, the report provides several key recommendations. First recommendations are firstly in terms of policy formulation, which I think we all have been talking I mean, that policies we do have, but still it needs to be strengthened and really targeting the grassroots level. And execution. Implementation is the key. Even having a very super standard policy, if we cannot manage to implement, I think it's not, I mean, we are not going, we are not going, excuse me, for a second. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. So that implementation, Bangladesh needs to implement comprehensive, which I think Mezabin also touched based a little bit, and we will be discussing more that how can be it so comprehensive and very well-funded national action plan. We all know that policy formulation is good enough, not good enough if it is not executed, and for execution we need resources. So that is something also came out in the report. So this is I mean, something very key for strengthening the anti-trafficking anti-trafficking standards and policies in Bangladesh, and that will also help. I mean, really help to ensure justice is served to thousands, which we believe, because with the minimum effort and minimum execution, there are, I have said that more than, even in 2024, more than 400 convictions were there. So it says that, so with so minimum, if we can really do it, if we have a good framework with enough resources to implement, will really make it happen as minimum as possible. I mean, at least we should wish for that. Then secondly, under prosecution, I think the government must take stronger action against the traffickers, which is including corrupt officials. I mean, of course, I mean, by enforcing strict penalties and prison sentences, but there are still a lot of issues needs to be discussed in detail under these recommendations. But this is something I think we really echo, that this is something, this prosecution has to be really strengthened by the government. Law enforcement officers also need better training. There is a very misconception, misunderstanding about whether, I mean, what is the trafficking and the labor migration. As we have been talking, that there are trafficking happening undercover or in the name of labor migration. So that is something I think we need to make it really demystify within the law enforcement officials in Bangladesh. Then in terms of protection, I think the expansion of the shelter services, that's the key, because that is, as I have mentioned, that it's still now it is only city, capital city based, or national or divisional city based, but it has to be like, in the rural areas, and it has to be integrated into all government responses to trafficking, not like an isolated support. So that's something we need to. There is still coordination gap. We found not only in the report, we know it, that it is there. So that is something needs to be really done. On prevention part, I think the monitoring needs to be very stronger of labor recruitment agencies in particular, so that it protects the migrant rights. Like, the government also can ensure that pre-departure training for migrant worker is very thorough and accessible. Many times we know there are loopholes, like, even not going through a proper pre-departure training, people are leaving for jobs. So that's something we need to monitor very, very, like, that's like a prevention. I mean, there are a lot of other things, but from government side, I think this is something. And finally, I would say that from the report, once again, that uh, uh, these protection issues, like, of which I have mentioned. So I think we can go to the next slide. Uh, when we talk about protection, actually prevention and protection, I would rather want to make a statement together, because without protection and prevention, without prevention you can't really protect. And there comes the role of the civil society, of the family, mass awareness raising, and to the whole society. The whole of society approach that we had mentioned, but still labor migration, especially for the domestic labors, I would say it still carries some sort of stigma. So there is, like that, we are not discussing, like, high skill labors, things like that. But I know that when the question comes of remittance, we know that who are sending the entire income to the country. So that is something I feel that still a lot of coordination and collaboration needs to be done. It's civil society organization, the networks. We have to bring the family and the communities into that, and also how the civil society can play a pressure role to really enhance the interministerial coordination, so that in all the steps, the policies that is being formulated is being implemented in a manner, so that, I mean, the number really comes down. So I think that is, like, in the overall report. But even the report, of course, is the document, but we all know that things are happening, issues are there. I mean, and all the occurrences are still, like, under our eyes. We can see many, we know, but still somehow a lot could have been done. The report actually focuses that, and that's what I'm referring to the report a number of times, that this is something, a very document, solid document that can be a guiding principle for us for the next days, when we plan our advocacy effort, when we plan our collaboration with the government, and with the civil society groups, and also with the whole society, with the
Hasina,
migrant.
we have to wrap up now because we have a few more
Yeah, I
speakers.
think I have finished, Luchira, actually. So that's what we are looking forward to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I know you have a cold and you overcame that to join us. So thank you a lot, Hasina. I think one of the most important points that Hasina mentioned was the difference between migration trafficking and human smuggling. Trafficking is always for the purpose of exploitation. In the case of migration, it's not for the purpose of exploitation, but the vulnerabilities of migrant people may put them at risk to traffickers. And smuggling is just how people pay smugglers to take them across the country. So the three are very different. And we have to understand the difference to be able to tackle them properly on behalf of migrant populations. Now, I would like to invite Kuki Akhtar, who will share her lived experience as a survivor and offer us perspectives and insights in how we develop policy and how can we help survivors as they move forward. Kuki is from Narsingdi, and her bio is now in the chat for you to read further. Just to save time, I will now ask Kuki to please come forward and share her experience. And Kuki, if you can just keep your remarks within the time frame, and we will share your entire case study on the chat so that people can read all this your story fully on the chat. খুকি আক্তার, আমি বাংলাও বলতে পারি, তো তুমি যদি কিছু চাও ট্রান্সলেট করার জন্য আমি করতে পারবো। খুকি আক্তার, বলো।
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
আলাইকুম সালাম।
ভালো আছেন আপা?
হ্যাঁ, ভালো আছি। তোমাকে একটু তাড়াতাড়ি বলতে হবে, কেন আমার একটু প্যানেল যে আছে একটু লেট চলছে।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে আপা। তা আপা ভালো আছেন না?
হ্যাঁ, শুরু করো, আমি ট্রান্সলেট করব।
আ আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আমার নাম খুকি আক্তার। আমি নরসিংদী। আমার গরিব বলতে আমার বাবা বৃদ্ধ, গরিব। আমি অল্প বয়সে বিয়ে দিছিল। স্বামীর বাড়ি খুব কষ্ট। স্বামী কাজকর্ম করে না। মারধর করতো। একটা বেবি হইছিল মেয়ে। কিন্তু তারপরে স্বামী অনেক অত্যাচার করত। এই
My,
অত্যাচারের
I
পরে
was
নিজে
Kuki, ektu thako. My name is Kuki Akhtar. I come from a very poor family. My father was very poor, and I was married as a child to a man who was very abusive to me. Bolo.
আ তারপরে স্বামীর বাড়িতে অত্যাচার কি করব? তখন এক দালালের চক্রে পড়ে আমি বাইরে যাই আরকি। বিদেশে যাই, জর্ডান যাই। দালাল বলছে যে, "আমি তোমারে নিয়া গার্মেন্টসের কাজে দিব। তুমি ৳৩০,০০০ বেতন পাইবা। তো সমস্যা হইব না, কাজ করতে পারবা সুন্দর কইরা।" তাইলে আমি বলছি, "ঠিক
Then
আছে ভাইয়া।"
finally, okay, ektu thamo. So finally, I fell into the clutches of a broker, a trafficker, who said that he would get me a job in the garment industry and I would be paid 30,000 rupees a month. So I listened to him. আগে বলো।
তার তারপরে গার্মেন্টসের কথা বইলা যে বলতেছে দালালে যে, "তুমি ৳৩.৫ লাখ লাগবো।" তখন বললাম যে, "ভাই আমি ৳৩.৫ লাখ দিতে পারবো না, একটু কম নিন না।" বলে, "না, তোমারে তো গার্মেন্টসের কাজ দিমু। তোমারে ৳৩.৫ লাখ লাগবে ভালো কাজ পাইতে যাইলে।" তখন কি করব? মানে অনেক কষ্ট কইরা রেন্ট-টেন কইরা ব্যাংকের থেকে তুইলা স্বামীর বাড়ির থেকে বাপের বাড়ির থেকে নিয়া বাপের বাড়িতে একটু জমি ছিল। মানে আমি যতটুকু পামু আরকি ভাই-বোনেদের কাছ থেকে এতটুকু বিক্রি কইরা আরো কিছু শর্ট ছিল ওইগুলা মিলায়া ৳৩.৫ লক্ষ দালালরে দিয়া আমি তখন বিদেশে যাই।
The
যাওয়ার
the
পরেও
Dharo. The broker asked me to pay him 350,000 Bangladeshi taka, and I didn't have the money. So then I asked my father, he sold some land. I also borrowed from my sisters and brothers, and then finally went abroad after paying him 350,000 Bangladeshi taka. Bolo.
তারপরে ৳৩.৫ লাখ দিয়া যখন যাইলাম বলছে যে, "তোমারে তো গার্মেন্টসের কাজ দিব, ভালো বেতন পাইবা ৳৩০,০০০।" তখন ওই দেশে যাইয়া দেখি যে না, আমারে তো গার্মেন্টসের কথা বইলা নিয়া আমারে বাসাবাড়ির কাজ দিছে। বাসাবাড়ির কাজ দিছে পরে এখন আমি বলি যে নিজে ভাবতেছি যে আমারে তো বলছে গার্মেন্টসের কাজ দিবে ৳৩০,০০০ বেতন। এখন আইনা দিছে বাসাবাড়ির কাজ। বাংলাদেশেও সমস্যা রেন্ট-টেন করে আইছি। আচ্ছা বাসাবাড়িতে কাজ করি দেখা যাক। তখন বাসাবাড়িতে কাজ করতে, করতে মালিক আমার অনেক অত্যাচার করে। মালিকের বউ জায়গায় চাকরি করে। কোনো অত্যাচার করে। বন্ধু-বান্ধব নিয়ে অত্যাচার করে আমারে। নিজে তো আর বলতে
Dharo.
পারি না। বাসায় এখন মানুষ নাই।
Dharo. And so then he took me abroad and sold me into domestic servitude, where both the owner of the place where I was working and his wife abused me a lot. The husband used to also sexually abuse me and also bring his friends to abuse me. I was not treated like a human being. Bolo.
তারপরে অনেক অত্যাচার করার পরে আমি এমনি কাজকর্ম করি। কাজকর্ম করার পরে যে আমার এইটা না ওইটা না ওইটা এভাবে না ভালো হয় না।
I used to work day and night, and whatever I did, they were not satisfied with it. They would say, do this, do that, do this, do that. And they were never happy with what I did. Okay. आगे बोलो. I think Cookie's link is frozen. So what I'll do is I'll ask the next speaker, Jasia, to speak, and then we can come back to Cookie when her link unfreezes so that we don't waste time. Jasia Khatun is the director of the Warp Development Foundation, and she is works in a very dedicated way to ensure the rights and welfare of Bangladeshi migrant workers, including people like Cookie. So Jasia is going to be responding to all our panelists today. Thank you, Jasia. Over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Honorable moderator, speakers, survivors, distinguished participants, colleagues, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Actually, today, as we heard from our distinguished speakers and also from a survivor, and you have seen her case story in the chat box, the real situation on trafficking of women and girls from our country, actually mostly the traffickers and their middlemen disguised the victims in the name of better job opportunities with actually handsome wages which lured them to fall in their trap because they are dream sellers, we know. People with dreams and hopes for a better lives with their families falls in a vulnerable situation and turn into a nightmare of exploitation. In this aspect, actually, I am delighted to inform you that my organization, Warbi Development Foundation, Warbi stands for Welfare Association for the Rights of Bangladeshi Immigrants, is dedicated to the mission of empowering migrants communities and transforming lives. Established in 1997, Warbi stands as a prominent non-profit organization committed to the field of migration and development with counter-trafficking in person in Bangladesh. Warbi believes in migration would be a choice, not necessity. You also mentioned that. And man, woman has the right to migrate with proper information, knowledge, better prepared with skill training. And one of the most শিশির একটু পরে আপনি জয়েন করেন, হ্যাঁ এখন আমার পরে ঠিক আছে, আপনি একটু মিউট করে রাখেন। One of the most devastating realities of trafficking is that victims often feel they have now here to turn, trapped in foreign lands, sometimes without documentation, language skills, or even the ability to communicate with their families. They feel invisible, but they are not alone. Organizations like Warbi, along with international partners, CSOs, NGOs working in this sector, are working to establish rapid response mechanism, hotlines, and emergency shelters for survivors who escape captivity. But we must do more. We need stronger collaboration between the relevant ministries of both home and host countries and the law enforcement agencies to ensure immediate repatriation and rehabilitation of trafficked individuals. At Warby, we have seen the faces of survivors. We have heard their stories. We have held their hands as they revealed their lives. And let me tell you, rescue is not actually enough. Reintegration is the true challenge that we have actually seen. So far, as an organization, we are providing psychosocial counseling to help survivors heal from trauma, then skills development training to prepare them for meaningful employment, business startup support to enable them to become self-reliant, family and community reintegration efforts to foster acceptance and social mobility. But we need more actually hands. We need more hearts and more commitment from all stakeholders, government, civil society, international partners, and the private sector. We know that the Global Compact for Migration, that is we call GCM, is here and addresses trafficking under Objective 10, regular migration pathways under Objective 5, international cooperation and under Objective 23. Even the Bangladesh UN Network on Migration has 3 technical working groups on labor migration, counter trafficking, and climate change human mobility. And we WRB co-chairs the labor migration and climate change human mobility technical working group and is a member of the counter trafficking technical working group. So we are advocating in these platforms to combat the illegal migration as well as human trafficking. We are continuously urging our government, tirelessly advocating with them to ensure that all diplomatic missions have trained personnel who can recognize the signs of trafficking and respond effectively. Our honorable 2 speakers actually discussed different challenges and way forward. I would like to reflect some more challenges. First one is limited data. Lack of accurate data hinders understanding the scope and effectiveness of anti-trafficking efforts. Coordination gaps. Poor coordination between different ministries and agencies in our country of origin and lack of coordination with the destination countries for the better integration and monitoring of migrant workers, particularly women migrants. Other one is inconsistent law implementation. Laws like 2012 Prevention and Suppression Act of Bangladesh are inconsistently enforced due to lack of political will or capacity. We have their counter-trafficking committee, it's called CTC, at the union at grassroots level in public office of Bangladesh, but it is not active at all. There is lack of awareness and training, already mentioned our speakers. Law enforcement agencies, officials, lack of proper training on anti-trafficking laws leading to inadequate response. There is the actually labor exploitation. Migrants face forced labor in Gulf countries with exploitative recruitment agencies charging high migration fees. There is weak oversight of recruitment agencies. In Bangladesh, there are more than 2,500 recruiting agencies, but there is no proper monitoring. Unregulated, unethical practices continue among recruiting agencies. There is limited reintegration opportunities, few employment options for survivors, and social stigma hinder reintegration. And last one is political instability. That is, political challenges impact of effective anti-trafficking measures. So I would like to share some way forward from my side. That is, we need strengthen legal frameworks and policy enforcement, increase community engagement and awareness, ensure regular migration pathway to reduce trafficking. Both origin and destination countries must protect migrants, enhance collaboration for better integration, expand employment and entrepreneurship opportunities for survivors, improve monitoring of anti-trafficking efforts. In my concluding speech, I would like to strongly mention that this is not just a policy discussion. This is about real lives. This is about actually dignity. This is about justice. Every day that we delay stronger action, another woman is deceived, another child is taken, another worker is exploited. We must strengthen legal frameworks. We must enhance awareness at every level of society. We must ensure that survivors are not just numbers in reports, but individuals whose stories shape our policies. And above all, we must together across borders, across agencies, across sectors to create a future where migration is truly safe, orderly, and dignified. That is from my side. Thank you so much, audience and our moderator.
Thank you, Jasia, for a very beautiful, timely, comprehensive intervention. And I would like to see if Cookie is back. Shishida, if you can help us get Shishi to complete, get Cookie to complete her presentation. Cookie, তুমি বলো এখন।
তারপরে আমারে মালিকে এরকম ওই অত্যাচার করতে ওষুধ এনে দিত না, 10 দিন 5 দিন 15 দিন হইয়া যায়। পরে আমার একটু ওষুধ এনে দেয়, একটু খাইয়া ভালোই। আবার এই একই অবস্থা। এরকম মালিকের বউর কাছেও যদি বলি, তাহলে ওয়ও বিশ্বাস করে না। ওই যদি ওর স্বামীরে জিগায় যে, "তুমি এডি বলে করো খারাপ কাজ?" কয়, "না, মিছা কথা।" তখন এডি করলে আবার মালিকে আমারে অত্যাচার করে। আবার বন্ধু-বান্ধব আছে, ওরা সবাই মিল্লা। তখন তো মনে করেন যে আমার আরো খুব কষ্ট হয়। কষ্ট হওয়ার পরে তো মনে করেন যে আমি কি করবো? কিছু করার নাই। ভাত খাবার-দিবার দিত না ঠিকঠাক মতো। বেতন দিত না। আর কোনো কিছু কথা বললে তো আরো মারধরই করে। তো এরকম করতে অনেক দিন হইয়া যায়। কি করব? নিজে মরতেও পারি না, বাঁচতেও পারি না। তারপরে আমি দালালের সাথে যোগাযোগ করি। দালালে বলে যে, "তোমারে আমি কইছি যে আমার গার্মেন্টসের কথা বললেন নি আপনি আমার বাসা বাড়িতে কাজ দিছেন। তাইলে এহেন আমারে এহেন এরকম অবস্থা খারাপ। তো এখন কি করবো আমি?" তখন ওই বলে যে, "ঠিক আছে তোমারে আমি এনতে নিয়ে যাবো। তোমারে এনতে আমি নিয়া আরেকখানেও দিমু, আরেক কাজে দিমু।" তখন আমি বললাম, "ঠিক আছে আমার আরেক কাজেই দেন।" তখন ওইখান থেকে নিয়ে আমার এই যে কফি শপের আছে না? ওই আমি তো আর বুঝি না হোটেল যে বলে এগুলার মধ্যে দিয়ে দিছি। তো এটির মধ্যে দিয়ে দিছে ওই জায়গায় দেই যে এরকম ওই শারীরিক নির্যাতন। তো ওইখানে ওই অবস্থা কি করা যায় কিছু বলতে পারি না। ওইখানে আরো খারাপ বেশি। মনে হইতেছে মইরেই যামু। তারপরে এরকম করতে আমি ওই জায়গাতে পালায়া যাই।
একটু
পালায়া যাওয়ার পরে
আমি ট্রান্সলেট করে দিচ্ছি। So, Cookie is saying that, she was treated so badly in the place where she was living. They would not give her food, beat her, constantly ask her to do more and more work, not give her her wages. So she contacted the broker who had put her into domestic servitude and said, "Can you get me something else?" And he then put her in a hotel. He told her he was going to make her work in a hotel, but basically he put her into prostitution in a brothel where she was sexually abused for many years, and she lost all sense of what she could do after that. Cookie, aage bolo.
তারপর আমি ওই জায়গাতে ওই পালায়া যাই। হোটেলেতে পালায়া যাই। পালায়া যাওয়ার পরে আমি বাঙালি এক ভাইয়ের সাথে পরিচয় হয়। তখন বাঙালি এক ভাইয়ে বলে, "তোমার কি সমস্যা? কি হইছে?" পরে আমি ভাইয়ের কাছে সব খুইলা বলছি যে, "ভাই আমার এরকম দালালে আমার এরকম করছে।" তখন বলে যে, "তুমি এখন কি করতে চাও?" আমি বলি, "ভাই আমি এখন তো বাংলাদেশে যাইতে চাই। এখন তো আমি এই দেশে নাইলে মইরা যামুগা।" পরে বলতেছে, "ঠিক আছে তো তুমি এমনে তো যাইতে পারবা না। টাকা লাগবে।" আমি কই, "ভাই টাকা কইতে দিমু?" কয়, "টাকা ছাড়া তো তুমি যাইতে পারবা না।" তখন আবার বাংলাদেশে ফোন দিয়া বাবা-মার কাছ থেকে, ভাইয়ের কাছ থেকে, স্বামীর কাছ থেকে সবার সাথেই যোগাযোগ কইরা লেনদেন কইরা আবার ৳১,০০,০০০ বাংলাদেশ থেকে নিয়া তারপরে ওই ভাইয়ের কাছে দিলে, দালালের কাছে এরা কথা কইয়া দিলে পরে আমারে টিকেট কাইট্টা পরে আমারে বাংলাদেশে পাঠায়। বাংলাদেশে আসার পরে তো আমি আরো অসুস্থ হইয়া যাই। বাংলাদেশে আসার পরে আমি আরো অসুস্থ হইয়া যাই। অনেক অসুস্থ হইয়া যাই। অসুস্থ হইতে আস্তে আমি একটু পরিবর্তন হই। পরিবর্তন হওয়ার পরে আমি এক আপা ওআরবি থেকে এক আপা আইছে। আপা হওয়ার পরে বলতেছে, "আপা আপনি কি বিদেশে গেছিলেন?" বললাম যে, "হ্যাঁ, বিদেশে গেছিলাম।" "তা কি হইছে?" তখন আমি ওই আপার কাছে বলি না। কারণ লজ্জা শরমে, কারণ গ্রামের মানুষে কি না কি কয়, এই কারণে আমি বলছি না। তখন আপায় বলছে যে, "সমস্যা নাই তুমি কও।" তখন আপার কাছে সবকিছু খুইলা বলছি। বলার পরে আপায় ঠিক বলতেছে, "ঠিক আছে তুমি ধৈর্য ধরো। তোমার এরকম কিছুই না। তোমার মরতে হইব না।" আমি বলছিলাম যে, "না আপা মইরেই যাই। যেহেতু বিদেশে এরকম, বাংলাদেশেও এরকম আমার তো খুবই কষ্ট। কি করব?" তখন বলছে যে, "এমনে ধৈর্য ধরো, তোমার কোনো সমস্যা হইব না। তোমার কোনো সমস্যা হইব না।" তখন ওআরবি থেকে আপারা আইসা আমার সাথে অনেক ২-৩ বার আইসা ৫-৬ বার আইসা কাউন্সেলিং করে, কথাবার্তি বলে অনেক কিছু। তখন আস্তে মনটার মধ্যে একটু সাহস হইছে যে না আসলে নিজে চলতে সামনে এগিয়ে যেতে হইব, চলা লাগবো, নিজে ভবিষ্যৎ নিজে করা লাগবো যেহেতু ছেলে-মেয়ে আছে। তখন আপারা আমারে ২ দিনের ট্রেনিং দিছে, জীবন দক্ষতার, উন্নত এই ব্যবসায় ট্রেডিং অনেক কিছুই পাইছি। কিন্তু আমি আসার পরে সরকার থেকে কোনো কিছু পাই না। আমি বেসরকারি এনজিও থেকে কোনো কিছু পাইছি। অনেক কিছুই পাইছি কিন্তু ওআরবি থেকে পাইছি। তো সরকারি থেকে আমি কোনো কিছু পাই নাই। কিন্তু আমি চাই যে আমি চাই যে আমার মতো এরকম নারীরা যারা বাইরে যায়, পাচার হয়, তো শারীরিক নির্যাতন হয়, এরা যাতে এভাবে এরকম কষ্টতে না পড়ে। বাংলাদেশের সরকার যে সচেতন থাকে যে আমাদের মতো মহিলারা যেভাবে বিদেশ যায় পাচার না হয়, তার প্রতি যাতে এরা সচেতন থাকে, এবং বাংলাদেশের যেই বিদেশের যারা গভর্নমেন্টরা দূতাবাস তারাও যাতে আরো সতর্ক থাকে, যে আমাদেরকে একটু সহযোগিতা করে, যে না গ্রাম অঞ্চলে উম গ্রাম অঞ্চলে জেলায় জেলায় যে পৌঁছে দিতে পারে যে না আসলে এই বৈধভাবে বিদেশে যাইলে ভালো হবে, অবৈধভাবে যায় বিদেশে যাওয়া না যায়। এরকম ভাবে যদি আমাদের দেশের সরকার, বিদেশের গভর্নমেন্টরা খুবই চেষ্টা করে, তাহলে মনে করি যে সবার জন্য ভালো হবে। আমি তো আইছি যে সবার জন্য ভালো হবে, কিন্তু আমি চাই যে আমার মতো এরকম যাতে না হয়।
খুব ভালো বলেছো, Cookie. I will just quickly translate. You can read the whole story on the chat. But what Cookie is saying is that after somehow she managed to escape from the brothel and found another broker who she had to pay another 100,000 Bangladeshi taka. And then he managed to put her on a flight back to Bangladesh. But when she reached Bangladesh, she found she was very sick and she needed treatment for months because her body had been so exploited. And now what she's asking is that for the government to listen to the voices of survivors, create methods for survivors to seek help, to work across different sectors so that most vulnerable girls and women can also get choices other than being in the prey of brokers and access their basic needs from education to healthcare to livelihood opportunities and loans. She's also saying that if systems are created to create safe migration by the government in collaboration with other governments, then survivors like her will never have to face what she went through. So this is her appeal to the governments to collaborate on behalf of survivors and their citizens, the most vulnerable citizens. Now, instead of asking a question to each panelist, because I can see we are running out of time, I'm going to open up the floor to all those who are on this chat, on the Zoom, to ask any questions that they want. And I will please also mention in the chat who you would like to ask the question from. I know there is a question from Jessica Minhas. She says, a lot of these recommendations are universal barriers to organizations around the world. I'm curious how organizations, activists in your community are getting around these obstacles to make these recommendations implementable at the government and criminal justice system. What suggestions can you give us about getting these policies implemented to our respective areas? I would like to address this question to Mehjabeen.
Thank you, Ruchira. Yes, very interesting question. I was thinking to answer this. You know, when we started this parliamentarian caucus on migration and development, we actually thought like the NGOs or CSOs, they are working on grassroots, but sometimes the grassroots level work doesn't go to the parliament, doesn't go to the ministries. They don't know what's happening. There's a linkage, there's a broken linkage there. So that's why we formed this caucus where the parliamentarians can speak on the parliament about from the grassroots level, and especially as a parliamentarian, you get to work in the grassroots level. So it's important that they speak in the parliament. And when they're speaking, the ministry is there, the secretaries are there, and all the minister responsible for this subject is there. So there so there is this broken linkage can be mended there, you know, and they are like in Bangladesh in the parliament, if you ask directly a question to the prime minister or the minister responsible on these subjects, they are bound to answer. So this is how we work. And especially we had parliamentarian other like in the ministries, you know, like we used to have ministerial meetings with the caucus members, and where the parliamentarian used to ask questions, the ministry people who are responsible for this. So the caucus actually helped, and we had seen in the past that even we were thinking of having a South Asian parliamentarian caucus, so that because we understand all these problems we discussed today in Bangladesh, it is a problem with Pakistan, with India, with Nepal, with Sri Lanka, everybody. Because women, when they're going, they are most a lot of time they are trafficked and they're underage, they're abused. So when we work together, we can solve problems. So it's easier. So that is the reason we thought like the caucus, we should have a bigger platform to talk about this. And the more we talk, I feel it is the government listens to you. You know, the more we talk, sometimes people think like we have been talking about migration, we have been talking about trafficking, but nobody's listening. But actually, they are listening. That's why all the laws and policies are formed. And as our previous speakers said, laws and policies are there. There's no need to make more, but implementation is very poor. It is
Thank you.
everybody having that. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mehjabeen. Now, I have a question for Hasina. Beyond economic hardship, what social or cultural factors contribute to the vulnerability of Bangladeshi migrants to trafficking, and how can these be addressed?
Yes, thank you, Ruchira. Before your question, I think I just want to make one statement. You know, we often look at the numbers when we talk about migration or trafficking. I think these numbers are, we don't consider them as the faces or individual human beings. Like 10,000 trafficked person, 10,000 human beings, like, you know, maybe 80%, 8,000 of them are women like you and me and many other. So that understanding or the sensitization is missing with the with the policymakers. Yeah, coming to your question, yes, I mean, of course, economic hardship is the main. In fact, I mean, I would say that supersedes like everything. And these days, what also happening that especially more opportunities for the women as the domestic workers to the Middle East or you know, some other Gulf countries. I think that is of course like a great opportunity, but that also creates a lot of challenge and vulnerabilities to the more vulnerable. Then less awareness, like whatever the broker is saying, believing on that. Even when the government is giving, I mean, almost like free for the domestic workers, but still the brokers are there to get you know, hundreds and thousands of money somehow. That is like one of the challenge where the government somehow fails to have the acceptance within the community. And that is also one of the reasons that they are going to the broker, and then all, you know, all these nightmare starts. That's one thing. Another thing is that somehow that, as I said, the stigmatization of these domestic worker or people who are unskilled labor who are going to abroad. I think there people do not want to listen to them properly, even the policymakers, or even you go to the passport office and others. I mean, things actually starts from the day she has it, she confirm her choice that I will go, you know, abroad with a migration. And because I mean, for her it is a migration, labor migration, but then the thing starts you know, other way around. So those are the things, the whole of society, I mean, integration of the community and the family also is one of the key, I would say.
Thank you, Hasina, for these insights and these recommendations. And now I would like to ask Shishir to help me ask Cookie if she can tell us what were the challenges she faced when seeking help in Jordan, and how can survivors best seek help from Bangladesh? And if she can keep it short. Cookie, আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছিলাম যে যখন বাংলাদেশ গভর্নমেন্ট কি করতে পারে সার্ভাইভার্সকে হেল্প করার জন্যে, যখন তুমি জর্ডানে ছিলেন তোমাকে কি রকমের হেল্প ভালো হতো যদি বাংলাদেশ গভর্নমেন্ট দিত?
বাংলাদেশ বাংলাদেশ দূতাবাস যদি দিত তাহলে খুবই ভালো হতো, যে আমার মতো মহিলারা বা পুরুষরাও যাতে এরকম নির্যাতনের শিকার না হয়।
কি রকম হেল্প দিতে পারতে ওরা?
আমাদের সাথে যোগাযোগ করা, আমাদেরকে একটু সহযোগিতা করা। যেহেতু এই যে এরকম কষ্টে বাহিরে গেছি, বাইরে থেকে আসার পরও বাইরে যাওয়ার পরেও কষ্ট, বাইরে থেকে আসার পরেও কষ্ট। এই যে বাইরে আসার পরে ওআরবি আমাদেরকে একটু সহযোগিতা করছে। যাতে বিদেশিরা আমাদেরকে আরেকটু সহযোগিতা করতে পারে, যাতে আমি আমাদের ছেলে-মেয়ে নিয়ে ভালোভাবে চলতে পারি। সামনে আরেকটু বড়, যেহেতু আমি একটা পোল্ট্রির ব্যবসা এখন রানিং করতেছি, যাতে এটা আরেকটু বড় করতে পারি, চলতে পারি ছেলে-মেয়ে নিয়া। যাতে আমার মতো সবারই যাতে করতে পারে আরকি।
So there are two main things that Cookie is saying. One is that the government needs to keep in touch with vulnerable people and also monitor the brokers and agencies who are taking people abroad so that they are able to keep in touch with those who are migrating abroad for work and save them if they're getting exploited. Also, the government needs to collaborate with the destination countries and set up help desk or some kind of communication channels so that those who are migrating abroad know that they can seek assistance. And finally, when the survivors come back to Bangladesh, they need help to start small businesses. Cookie herself has a small business of poultry breeding and poultry farming, and she is looking for more help to scale up her business so that it provides her a real livelihood. Thank you, Cookie. খুব ভালো suggestions আছে সবাই
হ্যাঁ,
শুনছে
Ruchira,
তোমার।
can I add one thing?
সচেত সচেনতা সচেতনতা বৃদ্ধি করতে হবে না? বাংলাদেশের সরকার, বাংলাদেশের যারা বিদেশি গভর্নমেন্ট সবারই সচেতনা থাকতে হইব।
And everybody needs to stay alert and aware about these dangers. And there has to be massive education at the village level so that girls like Cookie know not to fall prey to traffickers and brokers and all of that. And then, Hasina, did you say you want to add
Yes,
something
I
else?
just wanted to
Okay, but
add
keep it
that
short because we are
uh,
running. We don't have, we
sure,
just have 7 minutes.
government need to spend a little more resource in terms of like in the lever wings of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's like crucial.
Very
Can
true.
I add something? Whenever we spoke as a caucus member, we had to speak to our missions, especially in Middle East. They were always saying they have shortage of working hands plus budget, that they don't have enough money to go and visit all the places, residences. They need to do that. I think it's time. If we want to stop this trafficking, we have to spend more. We have to give more money on the budget. Like, think about the budget.
Absolutely. Natasha Ahmed says that there is an app called Ami Probashi. And if there is awareness created about these apps when women are migrating for work abroad, they could use these apps to seek assistance and support and help. Beth Ryan from California says that finally authorities are going after human traffickers that have been operating for the past few years. Every week we hear about a human trafficking ring getting busted. While we have a few organizations that help the victims, I don't think we have enough resources to help everyone. My final question is to Jasia Khatun. How can grassroots organizations and survival led initiatives be better integrated into national and and international policy discussions on migration and trafficking? How is emigration important to Bangladesh in terms of remittances? And so, these remittances are vital, but how can we manage this on behalf of those who are putting in all this hard labor?
Thank you. Actually, you know that the Bangladesh is the major labor sending countries, and mostly they are going in the Middle East countries and different other countries. So actually, immigration or migration is very important for Bangladesh. Because every year in the job market there are many young girls and boys that enter, so there is lots of poverty. So they are interested to go to actually abroad. So a grassroots organization plays very important role because this potential migrants needs actually proper awareness at the very beginning or the pre-decision level. So we are actually advocating with our governments for emphasize the pre-decision stage preparation. Government is providing pre-departure training, that is 3 days pre-departure training, that is not educated. They are that pre-departure training before that they will go or ready for go. So so we are advocating with our governments like the awareness or pre-decision level should be emphasized. And we know that these migrants are playing very important role in the our economy. In Bangladesh, we say that there are 3 pillars economy. One is remittance, garments, and agriculture. So only the remittance, there is government has no investment, but our migrants are sending. Last year, we know that there is the 26, more than 26 billion irregular way. And irregular way, there is more remittances. So that is very important. And we are advocating with government because there is also problem is that our girls or women are sending remittances, but there is no proper data that women's how much women are sending. But they are playing very important role in the countries of economy. So that is our one actually advocacy, and we are advocating with government for proper management of remittance and financial literacy training need to provide our potential migrants, and we are providing grassroots different organization, NGOs, international organization with government. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasya. That's wonderful. There is a question from Cynthia Scarins who says how to get this recording. If you drop your email in the chat, then we can send you a link to this recording. So please do drop your email in the chat. If you have any burning questions or comments, we have like 3 minutes left. So please do put it in the chat, and I'll attempt to include it somehow as I make my concluding remarks. And now to the concluding remarks. As we close today's discussion, I want to highlight a critical truth. When we criminalize migrants instead of protecting them, we push them further into the hands of traffickers and criminals. This session has not only exposed the risk migrants face, but also the reasons behind why people leave their homes, their families, and their countries. No one chooses to uproot their life lightly. Many flee violence, many flee climate disasters, flooding in the case of Bangladesh, religious persecution, or economic desperation, as Cookie explained. Yet instead of being met with support, they often encounter bias, discrimination, and policies that make them even more vulnerable, which every panelist spoke about. The best way forward is not to punish those seeking safety, but to create safe and humane pathways for migration. We must shift our focus from restriction to protection, ensuring that those forced to move are not pushed into the shadows like Cookie, where traffickers exploit their desperation. Women and children, in particular, must not be left at the mercy of smugglers and predators simply because they had no legal way to cross a border. This issue is deeply personal to me. I am from Kolkata, and I have recently written a book called The Freedom Seeker, published by Scholastic. It tells the story of a 12-year-old girl whose family is torn apart by traffickers as they attempt to cross the treacherous Arizona desert seeking safety. They are not criminals, they are survivors fleeing religious vigilantism in their own country, hoping for a future where they are safe and free. Through storytelling, through policy, through activism, we must humanize migration and ensure that no woman, no child, no person is forced into the hands of traffickers simply because they had nowhere else to turn. I want to thank all our panelists for their powerful insights, our organizers for making this conversation possible, and all of you for being here today. Now the challenge is on us to take these discussions and turn them into action because migration should be a right, not a risk. As we see thousands and thousands of people being deported or being targeted in different countries across the world simply because they are migrants, we must see their human face. We must understand that there is a backstory to each person leaving their country, their homes, and their families when they show up in a foreign country, not knowing the language, not knowing the laws, not having networks or community, and how traffickers can prey upon these very vulnerabilities from taking away, if they have any documents, taking away their documents. If they don't have documents, threatening them by saying that they will put them into the hands of authorities who might imprison them because they don't have documents, taking advantage of the fact that they cannot turn for help anywhere because neither do they know the language nor the systems of that country or where to go to for help. And also, of course, taking advantage of the economic desperation that they will, after all, be willing to do anything. And this is when the traffickers take advantage. But the traffickers also take advantage of immigrants because there are no systems in place. Countries have not collaborated enough, have not created help desks enough, have not created awareness programs among those at risk, or for survivors when they reach a country, or labor migrants when they reach a country, about where they can turn to for help. There are several best practices in this field, and International Organization for Migration has some of them, but some of it includes monitoring of agencies which send people abroad for work. The other is licenses for agencies only given based on certain checks and regulations by the sending countries. The third is collaboration between sending and destination countries so that they can keep a track of who is coming and is that person checking in into a help desk regularly every month, every 3 months. Also, training for civil society and awareness creation programs in village after village, but also in destination countries, so they know what to do, but also of law enforcement and prosecutors, so they can deal with potential victims or victims in a more humane way, so that victims are not afraid to come forward asking for help. And lastly, most importantly, punishment of those who take advantage of the vulnerability of those who are migrating just to seek a better life, an opportunity, send some money back home. And it's very, very important that they are able to do that, because if they do not get any support, the traffickers will take advantage of them. So, this conversation highlights the plight of Bangladeshi migrants when they go abroad and what Bangladesh is doing to help their migrants. But they need more help. They need support from other countries. They need support from civil society. And they need support also from the NGO, UN, CSW, and other people who are listening in on this conversation. If you have a best practice to share, please do share it on this chat. And if you have some case study that you could share to create more awareness, also share it on this chat. We will make sure that those who have given us the emails get the information that you would like to pass on. Thank you very much once again to Eva and to Saiful, to Peace and to Warb for organizing this wonderful panel. And thank you to all the panelists for the insights, and all those who are in our audience from across the world, all the way from Bangladesh to California, who are listening in and showing, just by showing up, your solidarity with migrant workers. Thank you, everyone. We hope to share more with you in the coming months and coming years. Thank you very much.
Thanks for sure.
Thank you, Ruchira.
Thank you, Ruchira, and everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Bye.
Thank you very much for having joined us.
Thank you very much, Suruchira, for your nice moderation and also excellent presentation of the speakers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Get well soon.